Exhibit C. Excerpt below taken from a local Jamaican report published May 16, 2010. Since taking over central and local government administrations, the Cokes Company had been awarded over $100 million in state contracts, excluding the latest contract on Washington Boulevard. Records from the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation and the Office of Contractor General show that the contracts were awarded after the ruling Jamaica Labour Party took over the parish council in 2003 and August 2009. Less than a year after assuming power, the government awarded the company a number of lucrative contracts, which, by August last year, 2009, amounted to approximately $71,754,897.49 in contracts endorsed by the National Contracts Commission. Contracts awarded to Incomparable Enterprise included one to construct a monument for the fourth Prime Minister and former leader of the JLP, the late Hugh Lawson Shearer, at a cost of $4,602,848. This monument was constructed at the National Heroes Circle, burial ground for the nation's heroes and statesmen. There are indications that there is an unofficial policy where contracts for projects in the downtown Kingston area are awarded to that company, which has been awarded close to $30 million by the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation, KSAC, since the Jamaica Labour Party took control of the council in 2003. The company was also the recipient of a $16.9 million contract in November 2008 to repair the historic Ward Theatre, also located in downtown Kingston. In 2008, the National Works Agency, NWA, awarded Incomparable Enterprise a contract for over $28 million to repair the Tivoli Gully, which encircles Tivoli Gardens, where Coke has his headquarters. The OCG 2008 report stated that the company was contracted to do emergency Hurricane Gustav repair work to the reinforced concrete retaining wall and to slab the gully. A contract for $18.4 million was awarded to refurbish the building and modification including the removal and replacement of fixtures fitting to the canteen at the Ministry of Education. In August 2008, Incomparable Enterprise was awarded a contract for $2.7 million for the lease of heavy-duty equipment. End of excerpt. Note: monetary figures in above excerpt represented in Jamaican dollars. The evidence speaks for itself. And with the theory according to DUDUS, now tested and proven reality, it wasn't long before there was disparity in the ranks of the Jamaica Labour Party, which led to what many have described behind closed doors as the ousting of Mr. Seaga. According to the streets, Mr. Seaga was replaced in the name of progress by the hand-picked Bruce Golding, hand-picked by none other than Christopher DUDUS Coke himself, which, if true, was another clear indicator of his defiance towards Mr. Seaga. It is alleged that upon realizing that he was outnumbered, Mr. Seaga, being the man he was, made one last attempt at somewhat being in control of his own destiny, by attempting to turn over his constituency to his protégé, Olivia Babsy Grange, Opposition Minister of Culture, Youth, and Sports, 2011, currently 2020, the Minister of Sports, Culture, Entertainment and Gender Affairs, elected to office in 2016, but according to all accounts, DUDUS would have none of it. He was in charge of Tivoli Gardens, in charge of Western Kingston, and he wanted someone of his liking in charge politically, not a person placed there by Mr. Seaga, and especially not his protégé. Clarification. According to one confidential source, DUDUS wanted someone in charge whom he felt he could control, and by giving that person an electoral seat as secure as Western Kingston, the person would be indebted for the rest of his or her political career. A literal no-brainer, and it only got better for him, the deeper in debt such a person was to him. That's all it was about, what worked and benefited DUDUS's bottom line. By 2005, the seeds of discontent amongst the JLP members is said to have matured, resulting in Mr. Seaga's reluctant release of the Jamaica Labour Party reins into the hands of the Honourable Bruce Golding, who 2 years later, 2007, was elected Prime Minister of Jamaica, the first time in over 20 years that the Jamaica Labour Party had won a general election. A vision turned reality, and orchestrated, allegedly, by none other than the president himself. He was on top of the world, rich and infamous. DUDUS's strategic and voracious traits had made him a very powerful man. His craftiness had enriched him greatly, and by the time Bruce Golding took office, the man who many say was his hand-picked prime minister, DUDUS was at the top of his game, mind on his money and his money on his mind, constantly. Things changed rapidly after those developments, with everything seemingly on automatic. The word wrong didn't seem as though it was a part of DUDUS's vocabulary. Whatever he did not only worked, but worked well, always right on the money. He, DUDUS, invested heavily in gas stations, heavy equipment, real estate developments, land acquisition, entertainment, the hardware industry, fast food franchises, car dealerships, a security company, massage parlors, restaurants, bars, variety stores, beauty shops and beauty supply stores. He even got into the importing industry, a guise many say was used to smuggle weapons into the island. There was a loan company, and there were even investments in the agriculture industry and transportation sectors, and a host of other minor ventures. However, the most interesting of them all is quite possibly his investment into funeral homes. DUDUS was into everything that could make him a dollar. He may not have known anything about the particular line of business, but if you did, and sounded as though you knew what you were talking about, he was always willing to take a chance. Then again, he had plenty of money to spare, and he was who he was, so if you had the opportunity to pitch your business idea to him, the rest went without saying. Note: businessman, yes, but DUDUS was still who he was, a don. The president, who beyond the seemingly humble demeanor, was said to be one of the world's most notorious drug dealers, who ran his kingdom with a fist of iron. A fact said to be well known in the streets, so playing around with him wasn't even a thought for most. Spreading his wings. Never one to be flamboyant, except for his personal hillside residence, and modes of transportation, which included high-performance motorcycles, BMWs and Range Rovers. Even with his newfound wealth, DUDUS changed very little else in his personal life. What changed was his focus, his drive and his overall aim. With power increased, DUDUS now saw more, and what he saw, he wanted. No longer was his vision limited to Tivoli Gardens, West Kingston or even Kingston for that matter. He saw more, way more, and from all that was discovered while investigating for this volume, DUDUS not only wanted what he saw, he was constantly on a mission of devising plans to attain them. With DUDUS able to achieve all he had done in such a short period of time, when compared to the dons before him, he appeared and literally felt invincible. Call it an adrenaline rush of sorts, but with him already having other dons and community leaders under his spell, it wasn't long before DUDUS embarked on a mission that resembled those made years before by U.S. real estate tycoon, and now former U.S. President, Donald Trump. DUDUS had seen the value of being into construction, but he had also seen the value of being involved in business ventures of varied sorts. It was simply a matter of supply and demand, and since most people everywhere desired much of the same things, duplicating what was already tested and proven was once again a no-brainer. And with that, it's rumored that business ventures financed by DUDUS and his presidential clique were soon popping up all over, and not only in the city of Kingston, but all over Jamaica, namely, Spanish Town, Clarendon, St. Anne, and even as far as Jamaica's second city, Montego Bay. Soon the DUDUS influence was everywhere. He had perfected the formula for ghetto survival, and soon his blueprint was being replicated all over, reflecting closely what he had seemingly perfected in Western Kingston. Under the theory according to DUDUS, dons went from being viewed and known as mere apparatuses of violence, to pillars of communities, reinvented into businessmen, by the key architect himself. money over war. This was his cry, and he was backing it up. DUDUS saw opportunity in every situation. What others saw as obstacles, he saw as stepping stones, and with this outlook, he bought and remodeled several old and idle structures in numerous communities, and in some cases, he and his cronies just took them over. This was DUDUS and the presidential clique, so who was going to oppose them? From all indications, DUDUS gradually became very passionate about the business of construction. He now had both the money and vision to create almost any reality that his mind could conceive, and from all the evidence gathered, that's exactly what he did. When you know something others don't, you not only perceive different, but you also operate different. And that's exactly what DUDUS did. Most dons lacked the shrewdness that he possessed, plus they were all in awe of him, literally under his spell, so what he said was almost never opposed. Plus, with him empowering them, the other dons, by giving them the perceived ownership, or at least the overseeing rights, there was very little issue, if any, with any decision that he made. An acceptance that led to DUDUS becoming the shadow owner of several community business developments, the likes of which included most of what was mentioned previously, wholesales, restaurants, sports bars, etc. There have also been reports regarding him injecting money into struggling ventures, walking away a percentage stakeholder in said entities. Interesting note. Just to give a clear example of the presumptuousness of the individuals in question. Right across from Tivoli Gardens, on Spanish Town Road, on the very building, commercial space, said to be owned by DUDUS and Justin Ogilvy, sits the Jati Wholesale, a symbolic gesture aimed at keeping the legacy of the Koch dynasty alive. This establishment was not established by, nor did it exist during Jati's lifetime. Nowhere was off limits. It is said that DUDUS's business interests spanned from the capital city of Kingston, taking the Mandela Highway to the Sunshine City of Portmore, and the old capital of Spanish Town, before heading onto the Bustamante Highway, reaching into places such as Clarendon and Mandeville, continuing along the coast with pit stops in Negril and Montego Bay, before heading along the newly paved highway into the world-famous Ocho Rios. The training wheels were off. The theory according to DUDUS was everywhere. Seeds were planted, roots had dug deep into the earth, and fruits were being produced and harvested. And the more he thrived, so did Tivoli. It didn't take long for DUDUS to become a multimillionaire. Literally, living the role he had attained to the fullest, presidential style. But according to most, his most unique and refreshing quality was, he never once forgot the people along the way. Some say all that was smoke and mirrors. He was a master manipulator, and that may be so. But regardless how his actions are viewed, one thing is undeniable, DUDUS exploits did benefit his people. According to one female, Pressy was always for the people, is a man where we keep a stage show and carry the whole of the money come give we to the people dem. I so dem man they do dem ting, is always bout the people dem and you dem. Translated, Pressy was always for the people. He is the type of person who will keep a stage show and take all the money right back here and give it to the people. That's just the way he was. That's how he did his thing. With him it was always about the people and the children. Investigative efforts have confirmed that statements of that lingua were not devised to just cast a shadow of deception over DUDUS's reputation and create mysticism, as evidence proves that he was indeed famous for such acts of philanthropy. But to every act there is an intention. Although there is no denying the claims of the people, what many did not realize is that when DUDUS displayed such acts of mind-boggling generosity, he simply did it because he could. And because he knew he had to, not because he wanted to. This may have all seemed like an elaborate sacrifice on his part, but regardless of how it appeared, truth was, it was nothing to him, and at the same time, as much love as he professed for his people, evidence and those once closest to him, attest that DUDUS was more self-seeking opposed to being a good Samaritan. Sure he gave to the have-nots, and sure he did all that people say he did, but he also did much more. and it wasn't all good, and whenever he did anything, whatever he did was always nothing compared to what he really could have done, states one obviously bitter Western Kingston resident, who we will call Trevor. Not his real name. Trevor continues. Everybody talk good about the man, and me nah say him new do good, cause him do good, but at the same time, him same one responsible for enough of the death and destruction when us gwan in a Western Kingston and enough other part of Jamaica, so make we call a spade a spade. Translated. Everybody talks well about DUDUS, and I am not saying that he didn't do good, because he did. But at the same time, he is the someone responsible for a lot of the death and destruction that Western Kingston and other parts of Jamaica have seen, so let's call a spade a spade. Trevor continues. You hear me, pressy a politician, dem mandating set different, dem man dey care for self, more than people, him just know how fi make it look good, cause big man ting, if the man did care about who like him see, him shoulda deal with the ting different way man. Enough people drop out, and for the people dem still come for him, so mean you know. Translated, listen, DUDUS is a politician, his thing is just different, but it's about self with him more than it is about people, he just knows how to make it look good, because let's face the facts, if he really cared for us like he said he did, wouldn't he have dealt with things in a different way the other day, a way that wouldn't have cost so many lives, especially since the people still came and got him, anyway. Opinions about DUDUS differ like night and day, but his acts of philanthropy cannot be denied. DUDUS did do for the people, but on the flip side, many have said that when he did after he secured himself, or because he had too much, giving at that stage just seemed like the right thing to do. Then there are those who say that his efforts were all manipulative, all for show. He did them to look good, did them to buy hearts, minds and blind dedication. And still there are those who say, do the maths. If DUDUS was getting multi-million-dollar contracts from the government of Jamaica, if DUDUS was the arms and drug trafficker his indictment says he is, if DUDUS was the don he was said to be, who got all the gifts and tributes from abroad to disperse to his benefit, if DUDUS was the businessman it is said he was, making the kind of money it is presumed he did, if any or all of the above is true, was true or remains true, then what would a couple million Jamaican dollars be, dispersed among Tivoli Gardens residents, especially after making such monies off their backs to begin with, from events mostly patronized by them, a move that could be looked at as a literal taking of money from the poor and giving back to the poor, seeing that they were the ones mostly in attendance to begin with. So with that said, the question some are still awaiting an answer to is, did DUDUS really do anything for the people like it is presumed he did? Or did he just distract them with trinkets while advancing his own cause? A huge black cross greets oncomers at the corner of Darling Street and Spanish Town Road in West Kingston, a haunting reminder, which bears testimony to two unfortunate, unforgettable and life-changing events in the history of Tivoli Gardens. Lest we forget, is a huge mural imprinted with the names of 31 persons killed in clashes with the security forces during operations in that specific community. In 2001, 25 residents, 1 soldier and a police officer were killed, after the police and the defense force entered the Tivoli Gardens community in what was explained to the public as a search for guns and wanted men. The standoff lasted 3 days, from July the 7th to the 10th, and was regarded as the darkest spot in the history of West Kingston, up until the incursion of the security forces in search of Christopher DUDUS Coke, in May of 2010, which left an official report of 74 civilians dead, and unofficial reports declaring that the numbers were in the hundreds. Note: the unofficial reports gathered momentum when former Member of Parliament of said community for 43 years, and former leader of Jamaica Labour Party, Mr. Siaga blatantly rejected the official report, and who was adamant in his claim on national television that the number was actually over 100 in just one section, and maybe 150 in total, if the bodies were ever recovered and counted. Mr. Siaga went on to say in said interview that his account, his opposing number of those killed compared to the official reports, quote, is from knowledge that I have, and knowledgeably have. Clip removed from YouTube since the first publication of this volume. The other 4 residents listed on the mural were killed during an operation of a similar nature in the community of Tivoli Gardens, May 7 to 9, 1997, an incident also referred to by Mr. Siaga in previously mentioned interview. 1 year after the infamous 2001 incident, Edward Siaga, then Member of Parliament, said the event scared the people of West Kingston. It will be difficult for the people to forget, or forgive, the planner and the executioner of this atrocity, Mr. Siaga was quoted as saying. Additional account and details about said incident. On Saturday, July 7, 2001, police entered Tivoli Gardens, with the declaration that they were there looking for guns that was said to have been involved in the murder of William Willie Haggart Moore, the leader of the nearby Arnett Gardens, a People's National Party stronghold, Black Rose's crew. Moore's death had led to weeks of intermittent gang violence between supporters of both parties in the West Kingston, Hannahtown and Denhamtown communities. It is said after finding only one gun during the search of Tivoli, the security forces were asked by residents to leave. The lawmen however weren't too enthused by their request, and according to residents, began shooting up the area, firing wildly with no regard for their lives. Some residents recall horrifying memories of law enforcement officers, who after locking down the area, started shooting anything into homes, and at times even shooting into homes, acts which were said to be done in the presence of rolling television cameras. In the first wave of violence, it was reported that 20 residents, 1 police officer and 1 member of the military were killed. Overnight roadblocks went up in areas in close proximity to the action, causing somewhat of a ripple effect across the city's garrisons. Meanwhile, bodies from the warfare mounted, and in some cases were literally left trotting on the streets until Tuesday, 2 days after the fiasco began. Families and even the Red Cross were said to have been prevented from taking bodies to the morgue by all the heavy and consistent gunfire from what was said to be police snipers. It wasn't until a fact-finding mission by neutral Kingston businessmen entered Tivoli, accompanied by television crews, that the streets became safe enough for people to leave their homes, for the first time in days. Among the bodies recovered were those of 4 persons, believed to have died, as a result of a combination of fear, dehydration, heart attacks and hunger, as many had not eaten since the previous Friday, the last day they were allowed to leave their homes prior to the onslaught. The dead also included children, one of whom was wounded, said to have been shot while in her bed, eventually bleeding to death, due to no medical assistance. The Tivoli Gardens saga is one of epic proportions, and the evidence surrounding how this part of the city was actually ran, and under whose orders, is staggering to say the least, giving Jamaican media houses and outlets a barrage of unsettling exploits and incidents to report on over the years. Exhibit D. Tivoli Split. The following excerpt is taken from the local Jamaica tabloid. The Star, May 13, 2005. Will solidify this matter even further. A rift has reportedly developed in the leadership of the Tivoli Gardens community in West Kingston following last week's killing of 3 policemen, the Weekend Star has learnt. The rift is reportedly between DUDUS, the community's top man, and one of his brothers called Liberty, an area leader, the Weekend Star understands. Residents of the area tell the Weekend Star that the rift developed after DUDUS expressed dissent at the killing of the 3 cops. They say the top man has stated that the killing of the cops was an idiot thing and was never to have happened. Disassociate self, yeah man. The dads vex and see him disassociate himself from Wagwan, a resident said. Is like the whole thing threaten to split a whole family. The residents fear the rift between both men could split the community in 2, as both are well respected in the area, and this is something they say West Kingston cannot afford. Both men are sons of the late Lester Lloyd Jim Brown Coke, but have different mothers. However, Liberty and Christopher "Chris" Royal Koch, one of the two men killed by police last week for the killing of one of the policemen, share the same mother. Upset over cops' murders in the meantime, the residents say they too, like the rest of Jamaica, are upset about the killing of the policeman. "Me sorry see dem kill the police because dem knew do we notin'," one resident said. Another resident of Tivoli Gardens said the community does not have anything against the police and would not hurt them. "Wins the police knew have notin'," he said. Since the killings, West Kingston has been the target of several police operations, as police say intelligence has indicated that the cop killers may have come from that community. Police linked the cop's death to the killing of Chris Royal and Devon's Iron Train Griffiths, another leader from the area, who was also shot dead following a shootout with members of the security forces. Since Griffith's killing, information was leaked that 15 soldiers and 10 cops would be killed in retaliation. Police say Royal and the man with whom he was killed were reportedly making good on this threat when they killed Corporal Hewitt Chandler. When word of Royal's killing reached West Kingston, the Crossroads police station was shot up during a drive-by and District Constable Canute Brown was shot dead. Not long after, Inspector Lascelles Walsh was shot dead on his way to work. A policeman was also shot and injured by gunmen while doing beat duties in Greenwich Town, St. Andrew. Police have since held one man in connection with Walsh's killing. End of excerpt. Except for incidents of this nature, violence during DUDUS's reign was limited when compared to other eras and under the leadership of previous dons. This was the first time in Jamaica's modern history that Tivoli Gardens, West Kingston and downtown Kingston at large experienced relative peace, and it was said this was to DUDUS's credit. Guns were around, that was a given, but the guns were under control. The theory according to DUDUS was simple: guns needed to be around, but should only be used when it could not be avoided, and add his clincher, money over war, to the conversation, and what you have was a stimulating cocktail of convincing rationale: money and blood don't mix. This was a reality that everyone, even the most seasoned killers, could relate to, and from all indications, they bought into DUDUS's philosophy without a hitch. However, on the flip side of that coin, it is said that another reason there was relatively no violence in and around Tivoli Gardens during DUDUS's reign, was because, although not made public until recently, Tivoli Gardens actually had their own system of justice, and everyone inside that jurisdiction pretty much knew about it and accepted it, whether by force or by choice. And once again, the evidence gives a chilling glimpse into the reality of Tivoli Gardens. Exhibit E. Gruesome find. The following excerpt is taken from another daily Jamaican newspaper, the Jamaica Observer, June 6, 2010, Kingston. The gruesome discovery by security forces of shallow graves, one with the body of a person who was buried standing, and a suspected torture chamber, was shared with journalists covering the ongoing search of Tivoli Gardens on Friday. The tour was conducted more than a week after gunmen engaged the authorities in 3 days of clashes that resulted in the deaths of 73 people, among them a soldier. Jamaica Defense Force soldier told the Observer on Friday that they stumbled upon the graves during a search of an area in the community called Rasta City, located off Mackenzie Drive. The area is believed to be a location where thugs would dump and bury the bodies of people killed in the community of Tivoli Gardens, one soldier told the Observer. At least 6 shallow graves were observed by the Observer reporter in a clearing surrounded by thick, overgrown vegetation which made the trek to the spot difficult. "Look at this," one soldier said, pointing to a hole with the remains of the person who was buried standing. The soldiers speculated that the person was buried alive. The strong stench of dead flesh rose from the ground, where the soldier also said they found the decomposed body of a man buried in another shallow grave in an old, abandoned train car. Police and soldiers also showed journalists what they believe was a torture chamber in a section of Tivoli called Java. The chamber is an area where we believe people were dragged to and then tried in an informal court sessions by thugs, one member of the security forces said. A soldier who declined to give his name because he was not authorized to speak, showed reporters two small buildings from where the authorities suspected that death sentences were handed down. The man them, criminals, even have two gavels used in the informal court, said one soldier. A blood-stained metal baseball bat, two lengths of rope, each tied in a noose at the top of a door, were seen in the suspected torture chamber. Sections of the floor were covered with thick lumps of partially dried blood. The stench of urine hung heavy in the air. The find has pushed us even closer to the conclusion that the area was a highly organized criminal den, said one cop. The man dem even have medical facility in the area, added one soldier. Our information is suggesting that this is where criminals who are injured in battle could go for treatment. Tivoli residents denied knowledge of the alleged torture chamber or the shallow graves. Is lie them telling, nothing don't go so, said one woman who was among a large group gathered in front of the temporary office set up in the community by the public defender. You knew see is make them making up the stories. Me live here how long and mean you know of that, said another woman. However, the police countered the residents' claim, saying that the decomposed state in which several of the bodies were found was clear evidence that they were killed by men in the area days before the security forces entered on May 24. End of excerpt. So after all that's said and done, even with all of DUDUS's Robin Hood-like gestures and ongoing displays of philanthropy, there still laid a dark and almost scary side to the reign of the man so many affectionately called the President.